Right, everyone, welcome to episode 11 of Dr. Will's Straight to Tape with myself, Dr. Will O'Connor, sports scientist, coach, educator, and endurance athlete. This week, I am getting deep into data with a running shoe comparison, a performance comparison, and I spent way too long putting together this presentation on how these Vaporfly ZoomX foam, the Pebax foam, is just so much better than some of these other foams and how some stack up a lot better than others. So let's get into it. All right, so this is my running shoe comparison presentation by myself, Dr. Will O'Connor. Right, so the session I used I did it the same each time, except one actually, but I'll say that. So I did 2x2K and then 4x1K using my power meter for pacing, stride power meter, and I used zone 4, 96% to 105% of my critical power, my FTP. And just the first session, I only did 3 1Ks, but I'm not actually going to get into my 1K splits. And the shoes I used, the first shoe I used was the Boston 9. So that is the Adidas Boston 9, and it has two types of foam in it. It has the boost foam, which is a EVA, and then it has a compressed EVA with light strike in the forefoot. So that it's a low stack shoe. It's like your standard training shoe. It is completely redeveloped for the Boston 10, but what I'd consider that is like your thin old school training shoe, and it's got a developed foam, but definitely not one of the new iterations of foam that we're going to see in like the Pebax foam. Then the next shoe I had was the Zoomfly, Nike Zoomfly 3, and that's the React foam. So that is a thermoplastic elastomer. And so that's kind of the new iteration of foams coming away from the EVA, although it has EVA integrated into it. So that's just a cheaper foam. And so it's more of a cheap training shoe, I guess, or cheap super shoe. It's got a 28 mil to 36 mil stack height. So what's that, around an 8 millimeter drop? And then the monster dog. The third shoe was the Nike Vaporfly Next Percent. So not the Next Percent 2. So all of these actually just within the last couple of months have been superseded. But I'm not made of shoes. So these are the ones that I got, and the other ones most people have probably got. So we have carbon plate. We had the carbon plate in the Zoomfly as well, and we've got the ZoomX foam, which is polyether block amide. That is Pebax. So that is a thermoelastomer, and it's just the way that they've foamed it that has created this new game changer. So Pebax powered. I recommend you check them out on Instagram, and I recommend you check out our podcast as well. And so this is 40 mil to 32 mil stack. So 40 being the max stack you can get out of your shoe by the World Athletics Federation before it's illegal. So those are the shoes that I had. Like I said, check this podcast out because Matt and I, we had a great time. I have Performance Advantage podcasts that I do with Dr. Matt Miller, fellow PhD sports scientists, and we interviewed the people who created this foam, and it was really fascinating to see how they got there, how they help brands, and what's coming next. So check that out, Performance Advantage podcast. All right, so now to get into the data. So for the data, I used a stride power meter, and I used the Garmin HRM Run heart rate strap. So both with lots of accelerometers in them. Okay, so first I'm just going to look at the 2K intervals because they were, I guess, a better sample set and more consistent across a longer duration. So you're just going to get a better comparative data. Obviously, this is nowhere near a robust scientific experiment, but it is going to provide for me just like a good piece of interest and a good contrast of the data. So in the black, always through these graphs, we're going to have black Boston 9, green Zoomfly 3, and white is the Nike Vaporfly Next Percent. Okay, so in my times, first ones always just feeling it out a bit. So I did a 6:32 for 2K, 6:46, and a 6:41. So 6:32, 6:46, 6:41. And then in the second 2K, so after 2 minutes rest, I had a 6:32, a 6:46, and a 6:33. So those are in the different shoes. And really, I think what we'll do is just mainly look at the second 2K because it creates the best comparison between the Adidas Boston 9 and the Nike Vaporfly Next Percent. See, in the Boston 9, I did a 6:32 for 2K, and in the Vaporfly Next Percent, I did a 6:33. So pretty much exactly the same time for the 2K. And then you'll see in the Zoomfly 3, I did a 6:46. So around, what is that, 13 to 14 seconds slower in the Zoomfly 3. So already we're just looking at, we haven't looked at any data yet. You can see the Zoomfly 3, I've run slower, but was I just trying? Not as hard. Let's see. Power outputs. This is the interesting part, right? So if you just have a look at all of my other stuff that I've done on running power and why it's just a game changer for running, you can see if we're just looking at that second 2K, the one that with the best comparison, we have Boston 9, 406 watts, Zoomfly 3, 402 watts, Vaporfly Next Percent, 390 watts. So what's that? 16 watts lower than the Adidas Boston 9 and the Zoom and the sorry, it's going to be hard. Vaporfly Next Percent. So the super shoe. The super shoe, I went the same speed for lower power output. So I actually, when I worked it out, it was 4% lower power for the same speed. Remember those initial Vaporflies? They were called the 4%, not because they made you 4% faster, but they made you 4% more economical. And that's what I've seen here. I've run the same speed, but I've been able to like do it at a lower effort, or at least a lower power output. And then the Vaporfly Next Percent compared to the Zoomfly, I was 3% lower power. 3% lower power in the super shoe, in the Vaporfly. But I was also, and I've put 13 seconds per K. I need to change that. It was only 6 seconds per K faster. So not only was I 6 seconds per K faster, but I did it at 3% lower power. So I essentially became 3% more efficient in just my power output. And I went, I don't even know what that percentage is, faster. So, I mean, just if I'm just running these two shoes across a 10K, I'm making 1 minute with the Vaporfly. That's honestly, that does blow my mind. That just through this shoe choice, I can just save a minute. I don't even change anything. I don't change my training or anything, and I can be a minute faster. And then if I'm looking at just a standard trainer and then the super shoe, I'm not necessarily saving time straight off the bat, but I have a better economy, so I might be able to sustain my pace for longer because I'm doing it at a lower relative effort. So where are the gains coming from? If we have a look, I'm looking at stride length here. So stride length is measured in meters. And again, we'll just look at the second 2K because it creates a best comparison between the Adidas and the Vaporfly. So the Adidas Boston 9, I've got a 1.8 meter stride length. So that's how far I travel per stride. Zoomfly, 1.78. And then the Vaporfly, 1.81 meters. So they're all very similar in terms of my stride length. You know, there's only a variance across from the Zoomfly at 1.78 meters to the longest 1.81 meters. That's only 3 centimeters. So not a lot of variance there. Then, so yeah, if we say stride length, probably constant, you know, if we take account variation, like 3 centimeters across 2Ks on average, like that's pretty close. Then we look at ground contact time. Now we're gonna, same again, just looking at that second 2K with the best comparison. So ground contact time is how long your foot spends on the ground. that's like, we've got our Boston 9 here, 193 milliseconds, 206 milliseconds, the Zoomfly 3, Vaporfly next percent, 196 milliseconds. So Boston 9 with the lower compression, like lower stack height, less time on the ground. Vaporfly next percent also, interestingly, considering how much foam it has, that shows how responsive it is with how comparable the ground contact time is between these two shoes, between one with like, was it 23 mils and 32 mils of stack height. And then, come on, this guy's just, the Zoomfly is just not even, he's not even stacking up over 200 milliseconds. So vertical oscillation, that's how far I move up and down per stride. And now this is important because you want to transfer all of your energy and propulsive force into moving forward, not moving up and down. You do obviously need to move up a little bit in order to travel forward, but the less you can do that, the more efficient and more energy you're going to be able to translate into forward momentum. So same, we'll just look at that second 2K. We've got 10.7 centimeters in the ADS Boston, 11.1 centimeters in Zoomfly, Vaporfly 10.7. So the same between these, between the ADS Boston and the next percent. Zoomfly again, come on, mate. Like, what is that? 0.4 of a centimeter extra up travel per stride. That's contributing to a bit of lost energy for sure, or at least lost propulsive force. Now, cadence, pretty much 171 centimeters for the thin shoe, which I would imagine because you don't have as much compression in there, and we saw that in the ground contact time, so that's translating to a faster cadence. The actual shoe is not able to absorb the energy, so I need to get my foot on and off the ground quicker, which translates just to a faster cadence to minimize energy loss. Then 166, so we're going from 171 to 166 in the Zoomfly. So I mean, my foot's spinning longer on the ground, it's compressing more, I'm not getting the recoil out of it, and essentially I'm just like slugging away. 166 steps per minute, and then 169 for the Vaporfly. So the Vaporfly a little slower in my cadence, around 1.5 steps per minute on average, slower in the Vaporfly. So that would come down to just the sheer stack height and the amount of compression. And the stride length was about the same, so that's not really contributing anything. So what does that all correlate to? Where are the gains coming from? So it's less time on the ground, less movement up and down, more steps per minute, and longer strides. So if we put that all together, that makes me, at least biomechanically, a more efficient runner. I'm going to travel further per stride. More of my energy is contributing to me moving forward, and I'm taking more longer strides per minute. But does that translates to more speed? But is that correlating to what's happening physiologically? Like, I'm just, because of the longer range of motion, because of the shorter muscular contraction times, then maybe I'm recruiting more VO2. So I haven't got any physiological metrics, like respiratory exchange ratio, lactates, VO2. So lactates I can do, VO2, I can't really do just yet. But then you're probably thinking, if you've heard some of this and you've seen the data and you're looking, well, what's the difference between the thin Adidas Boston 9 trainer and the Zoomfly Next Percent Super Shoe? Because a lot of that data was almost exactly the same. Well, it comes down to the courses I did this on. So I've just brought up the elevation gain. I had 0 elevation gain on the first two, so the Adidas Boston and the Zoomfly sessions that I did. There's 0 elevation, dead flat. Whereas because of lockdown, I used a new course for the Vaporfly Next Percent, and it had 12 meters of elevation which I mean, it's significantly different. It's not hugely significant, but in terms of like elevation on the scheme of things, but it is enough to slow me down slightly. So the fact that I was able to get the same data and the same speed off of slightly larger elevation. So there's one section that just had a bit of elevation. That shows where the little bit of gain is coming from. And in terms of like why I was able to have a lower power output for the same speed between the Adidas and the Vaporfly next percent. And also with the even just 1 centimeter longer stride length, that equates to over a meter over the 6.5 minutes that I did the 2K. So that's it. I hope that was helpful. I really enjoyed it. I spent way too long doing it, but there it is. So until next time, guys, make sure you check out that podcast that Matt and I did, Performance Advantage podcast, with the PBAX powered people from Arkema Chemicals, I think, whatever. It's super interesting. So that was, I don't know, episode 82, 83, performanceadvantagepodcast.com. And then just follow me on my socials, especially check out, got some webinars coming up. So jump on the email list and all right, so that's it. All right, so that's it for the presentation. Thanks if you sat through it. I mean, I really enjoyed putting all this all together. And I just spent so long getting all those graphs and stuff together. But if you enjoyed it, you'll really like the podcast Matt and I did, the Performance Advantage podcast, with the people from PBAX who make this foam. They make it for a range of companies, and it was super interesting. So check that out, performanceadvantagepodcast.com. I think it's like episode 82. We're across Apple, Spotify, everything. You obviously got my podcast. Get on the email list because I've got some webinars and some exciting things coming up in terms of the membership platform, Q&As, and everything like that. So until next time, guys, enjoy yourselves. I'm out of here.